President Barack Obama has been touting his plans to bring home U.S. troops from Afghanistan. But today, in a major reversal, he announced that Afghan forces can't yet stand alone, and American troops will have to stay longer than expected.
Afghan forces are still not as strong as they need to be. They are developing critical capabilities: intelligence, logistics, aviation, command, and control. And meanwhile, the Taliban has made gains, particularly in rural areas, and can still launch deadly attacks in cities, including Kabul. The bottom line is, in key areas of the country, the security situation is still very fragile, and in some places, there's risk of deterioration.
And that fragility of the Afghan security forces was on full display when the Taliban recently stormed the city of Kunduz, the attack prompting fears the Afghan army could go the way of the Iraqi army and completely collapse under threat. Obama's been criticized for withdrawing troops from Iraq too quickly. We're going to discuss all this and take a wider look at Obama's foreign policy decisions with Jeremy Shapiro, a foreign policy expert at Brookings. Jeremy, thank you very much for joining the program today.
Thanks for having me.
So what do you make of this decision to keep the troops in Afghanistan longer, at least 5,500 of them?
Look, one of the things I imagine that the president has learned in dealing with U.S. military deployments over the past 6 or 7 years is that you have to set hard, difficult targets or you don't really move anything. And the president very much wanted to get these troops out by the end of his term. But I think he's also probably learned that those targets in the end sort of secretly need to be flexible. And I think he saw from some of the conditions on the ground in the last few weeks that this target probably needs to be pushed back.
But internationally, there is the perception among many nations, among many allies of America, that America's foreign policy is weak. You have Afghanistan, where the Obama administration says they want to pull troops out. Now they can't. You had Iraq, where they pulled out. Iraq fell apart. ISIS took over. And you have Syria, where now Vladimir Putin is the one who holds all the cards in his hand. What do you make of America's foreign policy?
Well, it's a big topic. I mean, I would say that it is very popular in Washington and in a lot of capitals abroad to say that American foreign policy is weak these days. But as the president himself said, that is a misinterpretation of where strength and weakness comes from. Sending U.S. troops to fight battles that don't really matter to the United States in faraway countries isn't where U.S. strength comes from, and it isn't where Russian strength will come from. I think that a president really does have to have the courage to say, I don't need to engage in sort of machismo pissing matches with people like Vladimir Putin. I'm going to do what's in the long-term interests of my country. American strength is not built by engaging in military adventures which are purposeless and which can't work. American strength is built by recognizing where your real interests are and by devoting resources to that and by making sure that you are strong fundamentally at home.
But American foreign policy for years has drawn strength from being strong in the Middle East. It is a vital area for the United States. Iraq is vital. Syria is vital as well to the overall Middle East. So taking on the position of allowing the field to Vladimir Putin, I mean, isn't that a sign of weakness? In the end, what Vladimir Putin did is
I don't know that.
Go on.
Fred, I'm sorry. I don't think I can accept your premise. The idea that the United States has drawn strength from the Middle East over the last few years doesn't seem right to me. When we look at what the American military intervention in Iraq has done, I don't think it's made the United States stronger. By spending several $1 trillion there, by sending hundreds of thousands of forces there, we haven't enhanced our credibility. We haven't enhanced American strength. I think that one of the things that President Obama has recognized is that, of course, we have interests in the Middle East. Of course, we need to be engaged in the Middle East, but we need to be smart about how we engage with the Middle East. And that doesn't mean just sort of showing strength for the purpose of showing strength. It means recognizing that there are limits to our power in the Middle East, and that there are limits to the things that we need from the Middle East. And Syria is not vital to the United States. Syria is obviously a humanitarian tragedy, and that tugs at American hearts, and we'd love to do things about it, and we are doing some things about it, but I don't think it's vital to the United States, and I think we have to understand that.
But Syria is vital to a lot of very important partners that America has in the Middle East. For instance, Turkey, for instance, Saudi Arabia, who are very angry at the way the U.S. is handling this.
I think that Syria is very vital to Turkey and Saudi Arabia. Those are strong countries. Those are countries which have a lot of resources to put into the problem. Those are countries that are putting a lot of resources into the problem, not necessarily for the better. I think maybe some people might want to ask themselves, if Syria is so important to Turkey and Saudi Arabia, why aren't they dealing with the problem more directly? Why are they appealing to the United States, in a sense, to take care of the problem for them? I think that we have had a problem in the Middle East for a long time with allies for whom these issues are more important, essentially relying on us to take care of the problems for them. And I think that it is important that we support, especially countries like Turkey, in the Middle East, and we are. But these countries have to take the lead if these things are truly vital to them and not to us.
Well, isn't one of the issues, though, that of course these countries are going to take the lead, but they are going to take the lead in the way that they see fit. For instance, the Turks are going to say, we are going to start a campaign foremost against the PKK, who of course are allied with one of America's main allies, the YPG, in Syria, and bomb the PKK instead of bombing ISIS. The Saudis are going to deliver weapons to groups that maybe America doesn't like very much, and the Russians are going to go ahead and identify their man, Bashar al-Assad, and support him. So it's out of America's control, isn't it?
The Middle East has for a long time been out of America's control. I don't recall a time when it was ever in America's control. I think that the points that you made, which are very important, indicate that even with our partners, we don't have precise interests. What are our interests in Syria and the Middle East? Fundamentally, they're the humanitarian interests, but also their broader stability. And what we have to do, and the only way that we can really help that interest, is by bringing the various external supporters of the civil wars in Syria and Iraq together. And we can have some role in that. But ultimately, we're not going to be able, through force of arms and through American power and through strong speeches, to simply say to countries like Turkey and Saudi Arabia and Syria and Iran, you have to do what we say. That's beyond our power. And I think it's one of the things that I think the president has been trying to communicate, although I would say he hasn't been very successful at it, is that we have to recognize the limits of our capacity to control events in a place like the Middle East. And I think the points that you make actually help point that out.
What about the fight against ISIS? That is something that the Obama administration has identified as a core interest, of course, because it's such a ruthless terror group. But even there, it seems as though things are going very slow. There was talk of a Mosul offensive that was supposed to happen early this year, and still there seems to be very little progress.
Yeah, I think that the United States has definitely identified ISIS as a core interest. The president, when he announced the anti-ISIS campaign in August of 2014, said it would take a very long time. And I think that what he was hinting at, and to a degree what he said, is that he's really going to count on local partners for the majority of that campaign, or for the hard slog of that campaign. What U.S. air power has done versus ISIS is essentially stop their spread, or at least stop it moving into new geographical areas. And that's largely been accomplished, but you're certainly right that ISIS has not been degraded as the president says needs to happen. And I think that that the idea there is to slowly build up local forces, especially in Iraq, that can ultimately take on ISIS. But I think that that's a multi-year struggle, and from the United States' point of view, it needs to be led by local actors. And that's important because if the United States simply goes in and puts a lot of power on the ground to wipe ISIS out, that will create no political context for actually solving the broader problem that created ISIS, which is a sense of lack of governability and extremism in that area. And so another group will simply arise, and we will be playing whack-a-mole in that area until time immemorial.
Jeremy Shapiro, thank you very much for joining us today.